Bonjour à toutes et à tous.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Please take a seat so we can start this seminar. And also, we are still waiting for those who are having a coffee. As a reminder, a little more than 50 years ago,
à la maison de l'UNESCO,
at UNESCO, there was the first symposium on the sun in the service of mankind. In this room, we have two people who took part in this symposium in 1973. Alain Liébar, who's sitting in the room, and on stage, where's Alain? Raise your hand, stand up, Alain. And on stage, Wolfgang Paltz, who will say a few words. And you had to be a visionary to organize such a symposium on solar energy in 1973, I can assure you. You can imagine the market of photovoltaic solar energy then. It was of 10 kilowatts then. And this is not a mistake, 10 kilowatts, you've heard me correctly. And the price was at $100 to the watt. So you will see that we've made some progress since. And to celebrate this 50th anniversary, under the initiative of Daniel Lanco, we decided to organize this seminar. As you will see this afternoon, it is very much geared towards the empowerment of collectivities and citizens. I will thus invite the different speakers to address this room. And I will start with the person who initiated this event, Daniel Lanco, that is who was the research director at the CNRS, one of the pillars of research in photovoltaic energy. Thank you for these kind words. Thank you, Jean. Thank you to all of you. Thank you, Jean and Wolfgang, for being here this morning. It's a great honor and a real pleasure to have... Hold on a second here. A slight technical issue.
Là, voilà. C'est bon? Voilà. Voilà, donc c'est...
So, there, very briefly,
l'introduction de Jean-Louis.
In Jean-Louis' introduction, it is quite extraordinary. This Congress was wonderful. It had a vision, as we enjoy it, a universalist and humanist vision, the sun at the service of man, or the service of mankind today, perhaps. We decided to change the title today, Sun and Mankind, so there's no dependency in the relationship. This Congress then was extraordinary because it was joyful. All the attendees said it. Jean-Marc Reiser, I would like to pay tribute to him. It is the 40th anniversary of his death, and he was there at the Congress, and he drew all of these illustrations. You can see this one on the screen, the UNESCO Palace from the 2nd to the 6th of July, Solar Congress, that's the title of the illustration you can see on the screen. Everyone sang in UNESCO, and the Professor Auger was then, he wasn't only into physics, he was also interested in mankind. And you have some of the practical works which were carried out during the Congress. It is also a visionary Congress. In 1973, it was a dream, and as Jean-Louis said it, you had to have some nerve to say that this was possible. And Reiser made a drawing, and he said, well, solar energy sends free energy, and on the other side, the other energies will increase So he drew that. This is where we are today. You may laugh about it, but he said that at one point these two lines will cross, and this is exactly what happened. You see that different types of energies are competitive, and I would like you to applaud all of those who helped us in achieving that. So now we may ask ourselves, have we done what needed to be done? Well, today we have many challenges. We have climate change ahead of us. And you see the curve here on the graph, the two sources of energy, electricity. For electricity, you have solar and wind power. And look at these lines crossing today. Our duty today is to make sure that this development can continue, to find all the means to do so, to achieve that, so that we can contribute to reducing CO2 with renewables. You see, with 10 terawatts of photovoltaic, you can save a lot of CO2. So altogether, we need to contribute to make this a reality. And here, what is incredible is that with this type of graph, you may think it's not feasible, but you see it with technologies such as computers. We are going to install about 1 terawatt per year in the coming years. You need to make solar energy wherever possible, where it is acceptable from an ethical point of view, environmental point of view. And oftentimes what is missing is the involvement of citizens, and this is why we organize this Congress. This is the challenge of the 50 years to come. And if you go on Google Earth, why is it important for solar energy to be part of citizens' willingness to develop it? Here you can find Charlie here. You need to look for the roofs where you can see solar panels. And if you look at this little roof here, you have a sunroof. And what is important in 2030, it should be the opposite. Charlie should be the spaces which are not covered with solar roofs. This is why we need the involvement of citizens, collectives, and we have positive energy buildings that can be developed further. You can look at the video which were made by Norman Foster on this specific topic. Thank you for your attention.
Merci.
Thank you, Daniel. Now I will invite our climate scientist, Jean Jouzel. Everybody knows him here. He has a specificity. He's just come back from Dubai, and he will give us some news from the COP28 Conference of Parties. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Daniel, for your invitation and for organizing this symposium. We had a symposium here 4 years ago. Thank you, Jean-Louis. Thank you to all of you for being here. One of the good news coming from Dubai is what is displayed here, to increase threefold the power generation of renewables by 2030. I think it was 13 terawatt. That was the figure announced. It might be the only good news. Obviously, the negotiations are not yet done. There are discussions in the field of renewables, but if you look at the IPCC and what they say on renewables, in the IPCC report, we emit about 45 billion tons of carbon dioxide every year, so 38 billions related to fossil fuels. You add 12 or 15 billion with other types of energies, and we reach about 60 billions of CO2 equivalent. What the IPCC report says between today and 2030, if we had rolled up our sleeves, we could have saved 10 billion tons through renewables, solar energy, wind energy, largely developed massively, and roughly 1 billion tons for nuclear energy and 1 billion tons for the storage and trapping of CO2. And this shows, when we talk about renewables, not only solar energy, storage and carbon capture, they seem to be put on the same level, the same playing field. But in fact, there is a difference. Renewables can make a difference. If we reach carbon neutrality by 2050, it will be largely due to renewables. So why is it the only good news so far? The negotiations haven't concluded yet. I don't know if you've seen some of the proposals. There is a fourth document being discussed. It should be the President Al-Jaber wanted the negotiations to end by noon, but I don't think this will be the case. But the bad news is that we are going to triple the potential of renewables by 2030, but we don't want to reduce emissions related to fossil fuels, and that's the very problem. We're adding these things up instead of making a choice. We should start replacing fossil fuels with renewables. This is our wish, our collective wish today, I believe, because we are this was I mean, we're facing an increase of 3 degrees in the near future. This means that some countries, some regions will not be able to live a normal life. In the IPCC, one of the first IPCC reports, it was an assumption, but you saw in Iran, they had 40 degrees, almost 50 degrees, and they had the government had no solution but to ask its citizens to stay at home. If you look at tropical, equatorial regions, they will really suffer from this temperature rise. So this is what I'm advocating for, the development of renewables, solar energy, but all renewable energies, of course, with additional methods. Obviously, there's nuclear power, trapping CO2. We have to look at the ethical aspect of that. We are still using fossil fuels. We are still emitting carbon dioxides. We're asking young people today to remove from the atmosphere what we are injecting into it. So from an ethical point of view, it's just wrong in my eyes. But the ambition of having more renewables, the announcement that was made at this current conference of parties, this is good news. In France, to triple the use of renewables by 2030, well, this will be no easy task. Thank you for inviting me. It's a wonderful anniversary that we are celebrating here. Thank you.
Oui, merci.
Thank you, Jean-Joseph. Well, the lesson I would like to draw from this Conference of Parties 28, as long as the industry of fossil fuels will have to meet demand, they will continue explore mining more fossil fuels, and this is exactly what the CEO of one of our French companies in this area said. So we need to reduce the demand in fossil fuels. With the use of renewables, we can achieve that partially, but also to control energy, to foster energy conservancy. This is the way to go. So just before I give the floor to the last speaker of this panel, the title of the conference is Solar Energy and Mankind. When we talk about solar energy as organizers of this conference, we hear all of the renewable energies. In fact, most of them come from solar energy directly or indirectly, biomass, hydropower, and we've added geothermy, which is partially coming from solar energy. But today we obviously talking about all renewables. I will give the floor to our third speaker of this opening session. Before displaying the message of our Ministry of the Energy Transition, Agnès Pannier-Runacher, she's still in Dubai in the final negotiations. So Wolfgang Paltz, I think most of you know him. It has been 40 years, 50 years. You've been working in this. You've been working in solar energy for 60 years. Wow. Yes, he's been giving me work in Brussels. Not only was he part of the symposium of 1973, he was also one of the co-organizers. He was working at the CNES, the National Council of Space Energy. No, National Center, rather. Yes, you're right. And he was one of the organizers of this 1973 visionary conference. We keep on saying it with Danielle, but you should not lose sight of this. So Wolfgang then served at the General Direction of Research at the European Commission, and he supported the development of photovoltaic energy across Europe, whether it's in France, Germany, or elsewhere. So, a round of applause for Wolfgang Paltz. And you have the floor now. I'm an old man, so I will remain seated if you don't mind. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to be here among you. And especially, I'm happy to see Alain Liéba among us. We've worked together a great deal. We were very good friends. He disappeared for some time. And I'm so happy to see him back, because there is something. Both of us, we were the only ones to be attending this conference in 1973. 1973, it was 5 years after the events, quote-unquote, of May 68. Where, you know, many things took place in Paris. I was already living in the Latin Quarter here in Paris, and I can tell you, it was interesting. So 1973, this conference was a major conference, 1,000 attendees. Important people coming from the United States. Obviously, they were more interested in photovoltaic energy. We had leading experts from the UK, some German experts, Russians from the Science Academy also.
des Israéliens.
Israelis.
Je me souviens,
Tabor, I remember Tabor. You remember him, Tabor?
eux étaient surtout intéressés
They were mainly interested in thermal energy and desalinization of water.
J'étais responsable
So I was in charge of organizing the PV aspect of the conference. Since then, it is the part of solar energy that has the upper hand. At the time, I wasn't in Brussels. I was an engineer at the CNES, which was mentioned earlier,
au siège Paris, rue de l'Université.
at the headquarters in Paris, rue de l'Université.
Nous, on était convaincus.
And we were convinced then of the
Tout le monde a suivi.
use of photovoltaic power. Everybody wanted to follow us and to develop it on a large scale. But before dwelling on that, I would like to remind you of what happened with PV solar energy in 1973. In total, someone mentioned it. At the time, we had installed worldwide, in total, a few kilowatts
Après sont venus
of solar energy.
les mégawatts,
Then you had megawatts,
les gigawatts,
gigawatts. The first gigawatt worldwide
installés
was installed in the year 2000.
au Japon.
Half coming from Japan, by the way.
Puis sont venus
And then
les Allemands.
you had the Germans,
Sont venus les 10 gigawatts.
10 gigawatts to start with, then 100 gigawatts. It was still the Germans.
Sont venus
And then the Chinese.
sont les Chinois.
The Chinese.
En photo-
Without the Chinese, in terms of PV energy, we will still be living in the Stone Age. We owe so much to the Chinese in this field. And what happened?
L'année dernière,
So last year,
passé
we
1000 gigawatts.
moved to 1,000 gigawatt, 1 terawatt last year.
Aujourd'hui,
So today, we've reached 1,500 gigawatts of PV
le photovoltaïque
energy, solar energy. PV solar energy has surpassed all other types of energy in terms of the volume of installations and in terms of cost. PV energy
évidemment,
is today, and I'm not even talking about tomorrow, it is the source of power which is the cheapest source of power on the market, much cheaper than nuclear energy. PV solar energy is the cheapest energy today.
pensez Dubaï et
Don't think about Dubai and what we are going to do in 2030. Today, this very day, it is the cheapest energy on the market.
voilà. Alors c'était une corrida. C'est pas venu tout seul.
It was a battle, obviously, and it took some time and it took efforts.
Raconte l'histoire.
Here you have a book that tells the entire story of PV solar energy.
Ça a été mentionné tout à l'heure.
And as was mentioned earlier by Daniel,
Il se doit que le livre est dédicacé
this book
à Reiser.
is
Reiser,
dedicated to Reiser,
absolument extraordinaire.
an extraordinary
Il était aussi
person.
mon ami.
He was also a good friend. So Reiser, the illustrator, passed away way too early.
Dans le 13e,
We were working on PV, thin layers, and so on.
le photovoltaïque
And we discovered the prospects of
le photovoltaïque.
PV solar energy. I mean, Reiser was the one who showed us the potential of photovoltaic energy. So this book is dedicated to him with the picture,
Extraordinaire.
one of his illustrations, which is very famous.
Le livre, je laisse un peu les brochures encore.
So you may take a look at these brochures. You can buy it from Amazon. It's not very expensive, 30 euros if you want to buy this book.
Qu'est-ce qui s'est passé en
So, what happened in 1973?
en 73?
What happened in 1973? Obviously, there was our small symposium, but not only.
Première grande crise de
There was the first great major crisis, energy crisis.
à l'époque aussi.
At the time, as today, there was a war between Israel and its Arab neighbors. In 1973, back then, and the Arabs got angry,
Comme maintenant,
and not like today, where
petite conférence
they just organize a conference, the Conference of Parties 28. But back then, they really got angry and they increased the price of oil dramatically. And it created an oil crisis in the United States, in Europe, across the world. So what could we do? We had to start working on gaining our energy independence. In France, in particular, this was emphasized. We need to be less dependent on oil imports.
il faut y aller tout de suite.
And we need to do that right now, without further ado. So, how to proceed?
Sont nos sources, oui.
What is the way forward? Yes, sir? I'm the timekeeper. I'm watching the time. Okay, that's it. I'm done.
Merci Wolfgang, merci.
Thank you, Wolfgang. Thank you not only for those few words, but thank you for everything you did over the course of these 50 years. I think that the whole renewables community owes you a great deal. Now, at the end of the day, we will come up with a statement, a declaration that you will be invited to sign during the cocktail party. And it will summarize the commitment that citizens can and must make if we want to follow this vision. Now, I'm going to give the floor to our minister, Agnès Pannier-Runacher. As I said, she could not make it because she has to be in Dubai. Good morning to all of you. Unfortunately, I cannot be with you in Collège de France for this study day dedicated to the 50th anniversary of the UNESCO International Congress, Sun at the Service of Mankind. I'm sure that this day will be full of fruitful discussions. You will probably talk about the major technological advances of the 1970s and 80s, whether we're looking at civil nuclear energy, renewable energy, and 50 years later, thanks to those advances, we have powerful tools to face the challenge of the century, that are the fight against climate change and the phasing out of fossil fuels. Your discussions will also enable us to recall that just as we did 50 years ago, we are going to continue to innovate if we want to be successful in energy transition. This transformation is unprecedented since the Industrial Revolution of the end of the 19th century, and we are going to need new tools. Yes, we're going to have to build the modalities of tomorrow. We're going to have to come up with new energy solutions, to invent the solutions that will make it possible for us to decrease our energy consumption or to improve the yield of renewable energies. This symposium will also be the opportunity for you to mention the key role of renewable energies in the success of our transition. We have to keep on rolling them out everywhere it's possible, wherever they are accessible, on land, on the sea, offshore and in the sky. You know, solar energy, among others, is part of a package of energies that we are very lucky to have. This is why I wanted to set up a certain number of measures to accelerate the deployment of renewable energies. For example, we should massively deploy PV solar energy on all the already degraded area. It was not the case before. You know, we have to look at brownfield and all the parking lots, for example, where we could have solar PV panels. And we are going to decide that we want to multiply twofold the yearly development of solar projects. Just to give you an idea, with this project, every 3 years we will have to do as much as we've been doing for the past 15 years. So thank you for discussing all these topics today. And I want to thank all the speakers, because I know that you will have a very fruitful discussion. Enjoy the rest of this day, and we will meet again soon.